It is Thursday morning, March 14th, 2024. I'm doing that, Brendan, because old man Brown said, boy, you need to remind people what day it is during the show. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But I'll tell you what.
You know, that your phone reminds you, and there's on your internet screen.
I know.
And on your watch.
It's amazing. And you know what? How many people? I do still wear a watch.
My Google tells me on a speaker, "Good morning, Brendan. Today
Yeah.
is this, and this, and
yeah." You look on there like this, Dad. If you're watching right now, all you have to do is look at your watch farb. But we have the best executive producer you can find anywhere. We were just talking about what he went through. We had some technical issues yesterday with his local cable provider.
Cox Cable. I'm just came right out and say, Cox Cable sucks.
Yeah, not a fan.
No.
But you know what Brendan did? He improvised, adapted, and overcame to borrow the great
I yelled and screamed, and I belittled, and then I cussed, and then I said, I'm going to leave your service. If you don't fix it.
And we got after it. But look, got a lot to talk about today. We got Coach Matt Dean over in Memphis. Will Gunter is going to check in for a few minutes here early from Columbia, talking about the South Carolina Gamecocks. John Hartwell going to recovering from knee surgery, knee replacement.
That's painful.
Another athlete, man. He's in Birmingham. He's going to call in or come in. Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Gary Harris in Tuscaloosa, tied 100.9 and Tuscaloosa WVUA. So, hey, everybody get pen, paper handy. Smash the bottom right-hand corner, that YouTube subscribe button. Tell your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors, everybody about it. And by the way,
everybody,
the ladybugs are like the lemmings over here at the farm today, and they are in the kitchen everywhere. It's like they're on a mission to I don't know what they're doing. Yeah,
I got mosquitoes. That just means it's Florida.
Well, they'll be here soon as they start planting that rice because they flood the fields and the mosquitoes come knock on the door. Hey, we're going to be right back. Get pen and paper handy. Brendan and I and our guests got a lot to talk about with you today. And Doug Dean gave me some incredible data about the money March Madness makes. Here we go.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right. Look, last night, those first two games, the first game, Arkansas Vanderbilt went to overtime. Hogs win.
I know.
Second game, Missouri and Georgia. I tell you what, it was heartbreaking at the end to watch that guy. Last name is Honor. One of the basketball players for Missouri was in tears. But that shows me that guy cares and is not okay with losing. And I saw Mike White, the coach of Georgia, gave him a hug after the game. Look, they're competitors.
Former Florida Gator coach.
I know, for like 7 years. And you know where he played his college.
Too.
But you know where he played his college basketball?
Oh, I used to. Once they leave Florida, I don't care.
Let's name that fight song. You know, Hotty Toddy, gosh almighty, Ole Miss. He played there.
Miss.
Yeah, he did. That. Hey, the Gators play Georgia today. South Carolina and Arkansas will play. Hopefully the Gators won't spit the bed tonight. I love this guy, Buck Wade. Anybody with a name like Buck would fit right in here in Memphis, Arkansas, Mississippi, right here in the Mid-South. I know several people named Buck. It's a great name for a man to name your son. And I know a lot of dogs named Buck.
No women.
No women.
That would be weird.
No, yeah. Hey, is Will Gunter on with us right now from
No,
Columbia?
he's not. He's not on yet.
I'm hoping he'll be with us. Matt Dean had an errand that he had to make, so he'll be about 10 after. John Hartwell I told him, I said, he is recovering there in Birmingham from knee replacement surgery. And Matt is here.
Matt's in the orange and blue room, and Will Gunter's right behind him.
All right, let's bring both of them in here,
like the Rockettes out there.
That's right. All right.
Let's bring in my favorite guy, Matthew Dean. Good morning,
Coach.
Mr. Dean.
There he is.
Hey, good to see you guys. How we
doing?
Coach
Matt Dean, great seeing you. Will Gunter is going to join us in a second for a few minutes before John Hartwell, who's recovering from that surgery, joins us in a second. Knee replacement. Old man Brown had both of them replaced. You know what my mission was when my dad had his knee replaced? Had to go out to the hospital, Germantown Methodist. He said, boy, you need to bring me a beer in here. So I got him a 40 in a brown paper sack, and I brought it in there. And he goes, what the hell is this? I said, it's a cold beer. And he goes, hand it to me. So he was ready to go. Let's see. Don't have the video yet from Will, but Matt, this is
that's
awesome.
A private chat. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's between the three of us.
I got you. No. Did you watch the TV last night, the color TV? My neighbors had the blinds pulled up all night long, and I watched both games. This is what I love about the tournaments. Everybody knows this is it. It's do or die time. I love this time of year.
Yeah, guys. I mean, it's like today, we're going to have 3 TVs here watching games. All the tournaments start. And, the funny thing is, you get some really good games in these quarterfinals. I mean, everyone talks about the championship game and the direct bid, which I totally get.
Yeah.
Man, these teams that are fighting for their, like we would say, to my team, if we were not a shoe-in, we're like, hey, our tournament starts today, those cliches. And it really does. And you're going to see some teams just pour it out on the floor. I watched a little bit of yesterday. I watched a little bit of Oklahoma and TCU. You might be saying, well, what the heck, Dino? What's that all about? But I'm just like, the Big 12, I'm trying to figure out when these teams get a lot of bids, right? I'm trying to figure out, are they legit? And I thought TCU as an 8 seed was pretty legit. I'll tell you another thing. I know they didn't have Hunter Dixon last night, and I think McClure. But, boy, Cincinnati put it to Kansas, I thought. I was kind of shocking how far they've kind of come down, the ladder a little bit. Not that Cincinnati's going to make a run or even get in the tournament, but Kansas is not rock chalk right now, guys. I know that's kind of a bad pun, but
that's pretty good.
I'm looking forward to the SEC tournament, though. Last weekend, Kentucky goes into Knoxville. Now, I know Tennessee had clinched the 1 seed, but that's still an impressive win. Should be a fun week. Was that the Bridgestone Arena, Rob? Where's that at?
Yeah, downtown on Broadway, right there. It's you can't
pick a better
setting.
It's awesome. Because they have the whole courtyard down there, and then there's then the convention center's right there, and the whole thing. It's
when the Drifters had that famous song on Broadway, on Broadway.
That was my part.
The neon lights,
the neon lights bright.
Matt, but here comes that hook from the Gong Show or whatever. Hey, once again, for old man Brown, he's watching right now, and he said, "Boy, good job reminding people of what day of the week it is and what the date is." So I'm like, Dad, we'll do that we'll do that kind of like the let's see, the web-footed kennels time is 8:17 a.m. Central. You're watching Sidelines.
But Rob, have you ever listened to a radio broadcast and you don't have you want the time and score?
Yeah,
and sometimes everyone's painting you a great picture.
You do.
But if you don't tell me now and then, hey, Florida's up 64-62, 12 minutes ago. I mean, give me a little time and score, right?
Yeah.
No different than what you're talking
about. Grand Bob is going, I like this Matt guy. I like him. I like the coach. And like I said, he's done a lot of design work over the years at Rhodes College. He put the music in the pool over there years ago. I'm going to tell you something. I love it. A question was brought up on an early morning chat with Doug Dean and Maury and everybody.
We're just going to say good morning to Will Gunter as you're doing this.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the money. We're going to get into the money part about how much money the NCAA tournament makes. And look, Will, I know you've only got a few minutes to be with us. We'll keep you about 12, 15 minutes. But let's get started. We've been talking with Coach Matt Dean about March Madness. The Gamecocks play Arkansas today. Tell us everything that you can. I know you've been up for 4 hours doing a 3-hour show before you came on here with us. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's exciting. I'm 41 years old, guys. This is the 6th time I've seen South Carolina get to go play in the NCAA tournament. One of those times was I was in 1st grade, and they played Rodney Monroe and Chris Corciani. So I don't remember that. So this is unique from the standpoint. Matter of fact, only 2 of those 4 times that I really remember has South Carolina gone to the SEC tournament, knowing that they're in the NCAA tournament. How about that? That's kind of a – so we don't know what to do around here. We debated this morning, like, how important is this game? Would you rather win the SEC tournament championship or a first-round game in the NCAA tournament? South Carolina's only got – in my lifetime, I've only seen them win 4 NCAA tournament games, and that all came in 1 year.
That's a good question.
So we don't know what to do. We're just giddy. We're running around town with our shirts off, excited to
doing shots.
I was into the tequila last night.
Yes,
I was having a good time.
I love it.
So it's fun. It is fun. A lot of people are excited. I mean, you're talking about a team who just set the record for regular season victories. You're talking about a team who conceivably, maybe has one of the best turnaround stories ever in basketball. And it's going from 11-21. And for people that didn't follow it, they were beat multiple times last year by 40 or more points. Tennessee clocked them twice by 40 plus. Texas A&M got them by 40 plus. Last year was awful. And this team, to turn it around, to go on the road and win the way they have, has been really, really impressive. And it's got a lot of people excited. Obviously, also when you factor in what the women are doing, the women's team, Dawn Staley and stuff.
God,
so,
what a dynasty!
There's a lot of excitement, which is fun. You guys know, doing the jobs we do, when you have content, when you have stuff that makes people excited, like what basketball has done, and there's personalities on this team as well. Michi Johnson he'll shoot it from anywhere. He'll shoot it from Memphis and try and make it in Nashville if possible today. He's a personality. Talon Cooper is a lot of fun. Lamont Paris, when you're 11-21, you can't show your personality, can you? Nobody wants to hear you cut up
No one cares
about mac and cheese and washing cars. He's been a lot of fun to talk to this year. So people are really excited. I don't know if they're excited about today necessarily, Arkansas tonight or this afternoon, but they're just excited about the basketball program in general.
Well, they should be. Matt Dean jumping here, and he's fellow hoop head. And I think it's great because the fact that South Carolina was picked 14th and they damn near won the conference. That's why you never sleep on anybody, especially with the portal, Matt. Things can change in a hurry, can't they?
Yeah, no question. I'm gonna focus a little bit on the women's team in South Carolina, who I'm a big fan of. I'm a big Dawn Staley fan, but I thought it was interesting because I know Kelly Harper, met her. One of my former assistants was on her staff. I thought the end of that South Carolina-Tennessee game was remarkable because I know it was a banked-in three, first career three, but I just couldn't believe how open it was on that side out-of-bounds play. And then to fast forward, Will, the way y'all won the championship and the reaction post-game, how Dawn handled the incident versus how Kim Mulkey handled the incident. And I thought, wow, 2 extremes. I thought Dawn was class personified, and Kim's like, yeah, you're lucky you didn't push Angel Reese. And I was just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Going back to that Tennessee game, I think the crazy part that nobody's focusing on is that South Carolina blew a 23-point lead in that thing. And
naturally, yeah.
And if you kind of focus on this team, because we talked about this team in November, they're uber talented. Talent was not the issue; it was experience. When you're replacing the 5 starters and the girls that moved on to the WNBA and everything, it wasn't a matter. Malaysia Fulwiley has grown up 10 minutes from where I'm sitting now. I've been well aware of her since 7th grade. So she was in 7th grade, and we've heard about her upcoming. They got another young woman that's coming in from Camden next year. It's number 2 player in the class, Joyce Edwards, who's really good. We've heard about these women and they're coming up. So we knew it was a good team. How would they respond now with it being their time? And to go undefeated, that's impressive. I think they've not lost a regular season basketball game. They've not lost a regular season basketball game since December 30th of 2022, I believe is right. Might have been 2021. it's a ridiculous number.
That's amazing.
And you're right, that Tennessee game, they blew it. And you question, like, okay, is this team, do they know how to handle it when you get into March, and when you lose in March, there's no more practice. That's it. You go home. And to blow that lead, I think raises some concerns. But then they have LSU's number. And LSU doesn't have a lot of depth, and South Carolina does. And these two, there's been some stuff that happened on the recruiting trail between Kim and Dawn, in particular regarding that young woman I just talked about, Joyce Edwards, with some stuff. And it's I know it's women's basketball, but it is maybe one of the most intense rivalries in college basketball, men or women right now. These programs, these girls, they do not like each other. These coaches do not like each other. These fan bases do not like each other. It's funny to say that because I watched that LSU game, and it's one of the few times I've ever watched any South Carolina sport and been like, man, they have to win in this game. You cannot lose to Darth Vader and the Death Star or whatever, Emperor Vader and the Death. That is a bad program. There is a lot of dislike, and that's about the nicest way I can put it, of the LSU program in Kim Mulkey by Gamecock fans here in Columbia.
Matt, you know, as a coach of women's basketball, and I got 2 boys, 2 girls. You don't like to see, I don't care if it's men or women, the end of the South Carolina LSU game was not good, but that's the first time I've seen that all year long in women's basketball. So you can't just say, oh, they're all terrible and all like that. It's the women's game is to me a more pure version of basketball. It's not all about being above the rim and slam dunking. There's a lot of strategy involved. It's fun. If you're a basketball purist, it's fun to watch.
Well, I'll even take it back. Will, you raised a good point about South Carolina and LSU. I mean, they have LSU's number. And I'm being from the state of Iowa, I remember last year Iowa employed a little bit of a triangle and 2 defense that kind of threw you guys back, and Iowa was very fortunate. They had their day. They could not finish off LSU. But I told people, I said, if Iowa doesn't beat South Carolina last year, LSU doesn't win the championship. I said, because LSU is not going to beat South Carolina in the final. And all LSU was talking smack to Iowa about how they had to use a junk defense to beat South Carolina. And I'm like, you should be praising them. They did you a favor. You were able to beat them with your athleticism and your interior play, but all you want to do is talk smack about how they won. So I think South Carolina's going to run the table. I really do. I just think that Tennessee game, even though you're right, they blew the big lead, coming back and finding a way to win that game kind of sets the table because they haven't been challenged much, Will, this whole year. They really haven't. I mean, there's maybe a handful of games where they've had to really, in the last 5 minutes of the game, dig in. They've just pummeled people. I don't know what their margin of victory is, but it's pretty doggone good.
I know at one point they had a single-digit victory against Utah in early December, and there was not another single-digit victory. Everything was double digits. Until the first LSU game in mid-February. I'll just say this for women's basketball because I love basketball. I love college basketball. I'll admit I interviewed for an assistant job with Mike Young when he was at Wofford. I've done the scouting thing. I love college basketball. The women's game really is in a great place. And the reason it's in a great place, what made college basketball so great in the 80s and 90s was you had guys that stayed, and you might have hated them. You might have hated Christian Laettner. You might have hated Patrick Ewing. You name North Carolina players, Duke players, but you had a relationship with them. And you watched games to pull against players or to pull for them. The women's game has developed that now. Look, they don't like Angel Reese here, but you know what? People will tune in to watch Angel Reese and watch her lose. Caitlin Clark, people will tune in to what they know her. They're getting to know Malaysia full while in some of these South Carolina. The women's game, Juju Watkins in Southern Cal. These are really fun players, and they have personality, and they're allowed to showcase that personality. That makes it awesome, I think.
Will, try to reboot and come back on. Your audio, we can only hear every other word. If we can't get it to work, we'll try to get you back on tomorrow or Monday if that's okay. It's going in and out, and I know it's coming, but just try to reboot and bring back in because I love this conversation, okay? Okay. All right. We're going to – hopefully he can reboot. Matt, you look at the game. He just pointed out back in the 90s. I mean, it's still an iconic shot. I got to go to the Final Four up in Minneapolis that year. That was an Elite Eight game for Duke to get to the Final Four when Christian Laettner made that shot. But those guys had been there 3 and 4 years. That's why most people screw up so badly in picking brackets. They don't watch enough late-night basketball like you do. The St. Mary's Gales and Gonzaga and Santa Clara and all like that. And Will was alluding to the teams that have been together for 3 or 4 years. That's why I don't consider these upsets. I consider them not part of the narrative that the talking heads on the national media put together, and they haven't done their research about these smaller schools from these conferences that are not in the headlines every day. There really aren't upsets in March like you think they are. Will, how's it sound? Let's try it again.
I don't know. How is it? You tell me.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah. Look, we had a problem yesterday with Cox Communication down in Brendan's in Ocala. He's our producer. It was on with us. We've got big storms coming tonight.
Oh, good.
Last week, we had an underwater internet cable out in the Atlantic that was cut. I don't know what happened. Some guy may have been weed eating. I don't know. But I didn't realize how much that affects what we do. But you, Matt, kind of pick up on what I said about teams staying together. That's why in the tournament you see so many, well, they're not upsets. They're just teams that have played together. They're just better than the one-and-done collections.
Well, Will brought up a really good point that honestly I hadn't thought about before, but about the women's game. Will, you're exactly right. You got these players that are staying 3 or 4 years, and sometimes 5 with the COVID now situation, and
6, 7.
Right? Yeah, we get to know them, and especially on the better teams. I mean, like it was crazy. Caitlin Clark announced before the Big Ten tournament that she was going to go in the WNBA, but she's done all this in 4 years. She could have come back and used her COVID year. And in the women's game right now, you go back, like you said, to the Patrick Ewings and all these players we grew up with, the Laettners, even though we may not have liked them, we knew about them because we saw them play for 4 years. And that on the men's side, that rarely exists in totality. Now, what the portal has done, in essence, has put together some teams that you may not see make a run. Last year when we had FAU and San Diego State, you have some teams that have some juniors, some seniors, some 22, 23-year-old men playing some 4 and 5 stars, like that Alabama San Diego State last year, Rob, where you got a bunch of young, talented guys that are going to make millions of dollars on one side, and you got some men out there saying, hey, not on my watch today, right? And that's why in the brackets, there's going to be a team or two that we don't really talk about that's just mature, that have played together, that like each other. They're unselfish. They're willing to guard the perimeter and everything it needs to take to win a college basketball game. And that's why it's such a great tournament. There are different ways to win. And, last year, obviously UConn was on like a heater. And, we've talked on this show all year about UConn as a possible repeat champion. Right now, Houston's as hot as anyone. Yeah. What they did to Kansas last week, beat them by 30, albeit at home. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it really is. Will, I know you've got a bunch of stuff to do. I told you we'd keep you about 15, 20 minutes max, but piggyback on what he just said, and you made so many great points about the women's game, and also you really put it in perspective how you got to appreciate it when your team makes it to the NCAA tournament. You're 41 years old, and you've been 7 times. Hell, I've been watching Auburn since I was in the womb. They've only been to the NCAA tournament 12 times. This will be number 13 this year. For some schools, they take it for granted. I sure as hell don't.
Let me start with that point. We got a text message on our show on our back in January as South Carolina was getting hot, and a guy weighed in and said, "Man, with the transfer portal, with the way coaches change schools, you got to enjoy this year. You got to. This doesn't have." Because Lamont Paris is being mentioned he's going to be mentioned for Louisville. He's being mentioned for Ohio State. If indeed Michigan opens, you don't know if he's going to be here. With the transfer portal, South Carolina's got 2 young guys, Colin Murray Boyles and Zach Davis. man, you don't know who's going to come, what school's going to come in and offer some kind of ridiculous NIL money.
Yeah.
You better enjoy when you get a good team. You better thoroughly enjoy them. And to go back to football, I kind of hate what happened to Florida State because who knows how that program is going to be next year. Who knows what's going to happen. You don't know the way it's set up now. You can't look at young players and go, oh, man, look at the foundation we have. Look at what we can build. So I think that's interesting. And to go to Matt's point, keep an eye on Charleston, College of Charleston. They won the CAA tournament. I've loved Charleston. Charleston for a while was the basketball school in this state under John Kress. Yeah. And they went to the tournament in the 90s when I was in middle school, and they beat Arizona in the first round. They've had some really good coaches. Pat Kelsey is the next big-time coach in this country, and I'll speak. I know him personally. There is not a coach that is more genuine, that is more real, that cares about his players, his community. Pat Kelsey will get a big-time job. If I was Ohio State, I would be knocking down the door of Charleston right now, trying to get an interview with Pat Kelsey and get him there. He is the real deal, and I love Pat Kelsey. Watch Charleston. But to your point, Matt, right? Ryan Smith, the player that they have, it's his third year there. Yeah. They're not built on transfer. They're built on guys who have come in, and you get those mid-major programs that develop. Those guys play together for 2, 3, 4 years. They develop that chemistry. Guy drives into the lane. He knows because he's been playing with his teammate. He knows he's in the corner. He doesn't have to look out there and see if he's there. He can make that pass, and that's how those teams upset those big name teams when you get into the NCAA tournament. That's what makes it fun. But Charleston right now projected as about a 13 seed. I think the most recent bracketology I saw had them playing Auburn in the first round, which would be a lot of fun. Two kind of contrasting styles. But yeah, you're right about those mid-major teams who keep guys around for a couple of years. They learn to play together. They develop chemistry that you don't have at the high major level a lot of times now.
Yeah, and you got to look at the number of hours they've played together is exactly right. I think it would be tough, though, to leave the food in Charleston for Columbus, Ohio. I mean, Johnson and Wales, the low country stew, the seafood, that would be tough. But I'm with you. The problem is most people just don't take the time. It's like looking at small cap stocks, mid caps. Everybody looks at the large dividend paying stocks. That's fine, okay? Or coverage on a stock. Do you want to be the 101st company firm that follows Procter & Gamble? There's already 100 other ones. Go find the College of Charleston's. Bucky McMillan at Samford. We're trying to get him on tomorrow. I know he's kind of busy. So, Doug Dean, hey, we're not going to press him too hard. Just say, hey, we'd love to. We've had him on before. I love this. Both of y'all know so much about basketball. And I appreciate so much when y'all are on here. John Hartwell, I think he was a little optimistic thinking the day after knee replacement surgery, he'd be up in the morning bright. John, if you're watching right now, you're in our prayers, get better. You'll feel better. He probably doesn't even know what day it is. And God, what would my dad do? What? By the way, it's Thursday, March 14th, and the correct time is 8:28 a.m. Central. Will, before you go, you did a 3-hour show this morning, correct? Before you came on here, what was the general consensus about South Carolina? Are the fans, hey, we got to pay whatever we got to do? Because you don't want Lamont Paris to go away. But this team, whatever happens in the NCAA tournament, they're still good enough to make a run in the NCAA tournament.
So you're asking the general consensus about what to do with Lamont Paris? Or
No, just keeping him and just this Carolina program. Because even if you don't win the tournament, you still got a chance to go and do something in March in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, people are freaking out. This is a really, really interesting from an insider, but from an outsider's view of how athletic departments now handle coaches. Do you want to get Mel Tuckered here? One good season and you pay out your rear end and it is a flash in the pan. I mean,
yeah, I love that term.
You want to go down a path. Are you did Mel Tucker get set up to get out of that contract? I don't know. There's a discussion for another day. But the bottom line is you're right. South Carolina, Lamont Paris is the lowest paid coach in the SEC, $2.25 million. They're going to need to pay him in the $3 million range. You're going to need to raise his buyout. But is this set up for long-term success, or are you overpaying like South Carolina did for Will Muschamp and you don't get the ROI on a big time contract. Where do you draw the line? This is a great year. Can you replicate it next year? Can you replicate it the year after? Or are you going to get stuck paying a hefty contract that maybe things go sideways? It's really interesting because, guys, we see it more in football with athletic directors all of a sudden throwing boatloads of money at coaches and things not working out. I mean, Texas A&M, we're not all Texas A&M.
Yeah.
We can't just pay $75 million to tell somebody to stop coaching our program. So it's interesting. But South Carolina fans, obviously, Lamont has endeared himself to this community. His professional – and look, I was texting with Frank Martin this weekend. I'm excited. We'll watch UMass play tonight. I love Frank Martin. He's my guy. But Lamont is a totally different guy than Frank Martin. They're two entirely different personalities. And people have really embraced more of Lamont's laid back quarter zip. People down here, they love these quarter zips now. They're flying off the markets here at bookstores, and they love it. And he's endeared himself to this community. And you're right now, people are terrified that the athletic director is not going to do his job and give him a contract, and we're going to lose him to Ohio State or another big name program.
I agree with you about the getting Jimbo Fisher or Mel Tucker, but that's a call. And boy, he's a great fit. I'll say that. How do people follow you, keep up with you? You got a great show, 107.5 The Game down in Columbia, the capital city of South Carolina. Love having you on, and we'll do it again next week.
Yeah, man. Tournament time, man. I love this. This is yesterday, Wednesday and Thursday when I was in middle school were the days I would skip school to watch conference tournaments.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, you can follow us. Obviously, again, we're on a network here in South Carolina, Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach now. You can always go to your app store. Go to your app store, 107.5 The Game. Download the app. Listen to us wherever. My buddy, my co-host, is a former South Carolina football player, Preston Thorne. He's got a lot of interesting takes. We're going to get into some NFL coming up in the next few days because of some wild situations there. But we love talking college basketball, college football, obviously. You can always go and check us out there.
Look, love it. Get ready tonight. Don't get scoliosis. Don't sit too long in the same curvature of the spine, sitting in the same chair. You got to get up and move around.
Man, they messed me up. I'm coaching AAU basketball now for my son, and I wanted to have practice Tuesday night because we don't have a tournament. I said, let's practice one night this week. Let's do Tuesday. And I got overruled, and we're practicing at 7 o'clock tonight. So I was like, guys, are y'all even paying attention to what's going on? So,
the humanity of it all. All right.
All about the kids. Good luck in your tournament.
No, you're right. I mean, it's nothing's more fun or difficult than coaching your own kids. But if you can do it, you can hit a fastball too. But we'll bring you back on next week. Thank you so much, Will. Love it. Have a great day. All right, Vince Ferrara coming on from Mama Ferrara's, the sports animal up in Knoxville. Let's bring Vince into the mix. Matt, what he just said, I just can't get enough of it. And Vince knows this. College basketball, this tournament time. The first two games last night, Ron Slay was on the set of SEC Now. And I know Ron was born in Memphis, but I don't know where he went to high school. I know he was SEC Player of the Year in 2003. But I really like watching him with Damian Fishback and Pat Bradley, the shooter. That's a damn good mix they've got on the set of SEC Now.
It's good to have Vince back, but to answer the question about Ron, Vince, it's probably better than I do. Didn't he play high school basketball in Nashville area? Am I wrong on that? I thought he made
Pearl Cone, in Nashville.
That's what
Pearl
I thought.
Cone, yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
I thought he was born in Memphis, but he went to Nashville Pearl. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he went to he did end up, I believe, going to Oak Hill Academy at one point. But that's where he was originally at.
Oak Hill Academy is in a town, the weirdest name I've ever heard, Mouth of Wilson, Virginia. And remember, so many guys used to go to Oak Hill Academy, Vince? That was a big deal. What's happened now to places like that? Of course, Hardgrave Military, Tennessee Military Institute down in Sweetwater. What's happened to those kind of places? But, I mean, a guy like Ron Slay in today's world, how long would he stay in college?
Well, to answer your first question, and great to be on with you guys again, it definitely is still prevalent. You got a bunch of academies. If you look through Paul Biancardi from ESPN, who He's kind of like their top basketball recruiting guy. We've had him on a bunch, and he'll list like top 25 guys in a class, and he'll list where they play in high school, and it's like academy after prep school after academy. IMG certainly is one that is utilized in all sports, but there are a ton of those really specialized sort of replacement high schools that are built around athletics, where you get your academics to go with it to kind of get you through and get you right and eligible. So they're still there. It's just not Oak Hill running the show, because there's a lot more of them. And what was your second question, Rob? I'm sorry.
Well, just how long do you think a guy like Ron Slay would stay in college in the environment we are in today?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, because there's the NIL element of it now.
That's right.
Where not everyone is going to jump at first. I think it's still happening in basketball, although there's some veteran guys in the sport for basketball. So I guess there's still some encouragement. Football guys are making more of those decisions unless they're like top of the first round draft, because there is more NIL money going around. I don't know that it's difference making money or pass up on the draft money in basketball, but it's hard to say with that dynamic what that would have played for Ron. But you're right, he's excellent. On the SEC network for sure. It's great. He was on our midday show for several years, and that's really where people started to see his personality. Then he started to do sports talk radio in Nashville at our sister station. He's actually doing reports from Nashville, because they didn't send any of us to Nashville during the week because they don't play till Friday. So he's actually doing reports on our shows for us. So we've known about Ron long before everyone else around the league is. And I'll be in Nashville Friday. I'm heading over there right after the show tomorrow morning. Looking forward to getting in the mix. And Dane Bradshaw's another former Tennessee basketball player.
Yes.
That also,
God, he's good. Yeah. Went to White Station High School here in Memphis.
Right.
And I tell you, both of those guys, I like what Damian Fishback, who's from Bowling Green, Kentucky, played for the Auburn Tigers, as the Yankees always got Auburn. But I watched it last night with Dane Bradshaw and Damian Fishback showing some defense and some moves that you make. Two guys from White Station High School in Memphis. Paul Feinbaum went to Christian Brothers High School, transferred his sophomore year to White Station, the Spartans, as well as Dane Bradshaw and a lot of other people, including my kids. But it's amazing. Ron Slay, Matt, is one of those people that he just makes you feel good about yourself when he's talking. I mean, I notice stuff like that. He exudes confidence, and he gets it out of you. He's one of the more pleasant people to listen to and watch, and he takes all that complicated minutia and puts it in the vernacular with relative ease. And Vince, I told you we're going to have Gary Harris from Tuscaloosa join us right now. We're kind of mix this up because there's a lot to cover. Gary, we got Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal on with us up in Knoxville, Coach Matt Dean in Memphis. So let's talk some Tennessee and Alabama and SEC basketball tournament. I know you're kind of busy this time of year. You got spring practice, you got baseball, softball, gymnastics, college basketball. Nate Oates and the Tide, the number 3 seed in the tournament. Let's get your thoughts on it and start bouncing this around.
Yeah, we don't know if Ryland Griffin is going to play or not. Coach Oates said yesterday at his press conference that it'd be a game-time decision. And, they hadn't really had their entire team together for some time because Reitzel was out, and they hadn't gotten him back when had gotten him back when Griffin went down. So I know they'd like to be full strength, as every team would. But because of the way they play, you lose a three-point shooter, that's a big loss for that team. And I think Reitzel probably is their most consistent three-point shooter. And he missed 4 games and barely played in a fifth. And then Griffin is also a quality three-point shooter and also a guy that, is a good defender at about 6'5". So there's some concern there, I think, in terms of their numbers if Griffin can't play. And if he does play, how effective will he be? But, they got the double bye, which was, if you're not going to win the SEC championship, which they didn't, which was their first goal, his second goal is to get the double bye, and they were able to do that. So they get 5 days rest. They played Saturday and won't play again until Friday. So technically, I guess 6 days rest. But you do play on Friday night. But they play the last game, which is 8:30 at the earliest as far as the tips. So all in all, they're ready to go. I think Coach Oates is a high energy coach, as we all know, and he loves the postseason. He loves the SEC tournament. So, more than likely, you would think they'll get Florida. We'll find out, when Florida and Georgia play. But I don't think Florida's a good matchup for them, but they did beat them in Tuscaloosa. Got blown out down in Gainesville. So we'll see what happens on Friday night.
Yeah, Vince, jump in here along the line of what he said, and then Matt, whoever. These matchups during the regular season, how much do they weigh on the minds of the players when they get maybe a third chance to play in the tournament, Vince?
I think it depends on how those two teams match up. Some it's going to work out the same every time. Others, you're going to see the revenge factor really come into play, and there'll be adjustments. And also, kind of with like what Gary was talking about with Reitzel, it depends on what your roster looks like and what your team looks like at that time. Look at Ole Miss and Texas A&M. Those two teams could not have been any different when they played each other. Ole Miss was really rolling early in the year when they beat Texas A&M. Ole Miss not playing great. A&M absolutely destroyed them in the last game for both of those two teams. So, Tennessee's had revenge games where they won both times. I think Alabama was one of them, but then Kentucky had it and was ready to go and made adjustments against Tennessee. And they were also different the second time against Tennessee. They were also healthier. They played their best defensive game. So a lot of it is just timing when you see those other teams. I don't think there's just one way to look at rematches a second or third time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Matt, this as a coach, revenge never won a game. If that were the case, Vanderbilt would be undefeated every other year. I mean, how much can you let things get to you?
I will say this, though. I think the parity in this league, and I think it's a really good league. I've seen some metrics where it's either the second or third and sometimes even the first best league in the country. But you look at Tennessee went 14-4, and you got, 4 teams at 13-5.
Yeah.
That may make for a crazy SEC tournament, because everyone's played each other twice. But think about the NCAA tournament. All these teams are really tough outs. The SEC is going to make a mark again in the NCAA tournament. And it wouldn't shock me if we have 2 or 3 teams in the Elite Eight. Would not shock me at all.
Yeah.
Well,
Gary.
Sorry, real quick before Gary jumps in, and I've known Gary for a long time. Super guy. Great to be on with Gary. But if it's chalk, like if Florida wins and advances, if A&M wins and advances, if South Carolina wins and advances, and the only exception would be if Mississippi State, the 9 seed, beats LSU. You could have the quarterfinals with all 8 of those teams as top 50 net teams. Yes. And the significance about that is that means in a neutral site, for you to get a quad 1 win, it's top 50. So anyone playing moving forward would get a top 50 win, and it wouldn't hurt you quite as much for seeding purposes if you're trying to avoid bad losses, because it would be a quad 1 loss. It's also helpful for A&M because they have opportunities. If they beat Ole Miss, then they have an opportunity for a quad 1 win against Kentucky. So that goes to the depth that Matt was talking about. You could have all 8 top 50 net teams there, all to be able to potentially help each other moving forward for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, Gary, you look at Alabama, the system that they run. When it's on, they're almost impossible to beat. When it's off, it's not. What is Nate Oates going to do differently in the SEC tournament and maybe March that can help them? Because last year they were the number 1 seed overall, and I respect the hell out of what you did, Gary. You called out to San Diego and talked to people. You familiarized your audience and our audience with San Diego State.
Yeah, well, last year that was, the thing that San Diego State had going, as we know now with the portal and the COVID year is, some of these teams, have really old teams, and San Diego State was one of those teams. They had a lot of super seniors. They had some 6-year guys, and 5 or 6 guys on their team were 23 years or older, and they were physical, and that's wow. And they were strong, and that's what's given Alabama trouble. As far as what Oates will do different, not a lot. I mean, they kind of they kind of play the way they play, and he's not going to change up anything. I think the thing he'd like to do is see them guard better, just play better defense, regardless of whether they're shooting the ball well or not. When they get in trouble is, when they're not making shots, it just affects their offense, but it affects their defense even more. Other teams get out in transition and are able to get easy baskets. So, they gotta defend regardless of whether they're having a good offensive game or not. And I think that's been the downside of this team is they've had some games where defensively they were just awful. And in a one and done environment, if regular season you have a bad game, at least hey, we're coming back next time and we can try to fix it. You have a bad game in the SEC tournament, you're out, and of course you will play in the NCAA tournament. But if you have a bad game, then there's no tomorrow. So I think the defensive consistency that this team has lacked could haunt it again. But you're right about one thing, Rob. If they're making shots, they can win. We've seen it. They can win 195 game, and not play their best defense. But if they're not shooting the ball, they're going to have to guard people better in the half court and in transition.
Matt, as a coach, you look at and listen to what Gary and Vince, who cover their Tennessee and Alabama, but they know this league. They know the big picture nationally. Why is it so damn hard to get guys to buy in to play defense? I mean, but because the teams where they do it and the guys don't mind sharing the minutes, look at Auburn. Guys, 15, 20 minutes, you're happy. You got 11 guys, down to 10 because Leo Borman's out. But talk about that from a coach's standpoint real quick.
Listen, guys, you know this in the recruiting process. You know who wants to guard and who doesn't guard. So one of the things as coaches, we always think we're going to make someone better. I'm going to be able to get Vince to come in and get over a ball screen if he plays for me. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's the truth. We feel that. And before my teams went on the practice floor in October, I would always go on YouTube and watch 10 minutes of Bill Self's ball screen defense. If you ever want to watch someone teach how you should technique-wise get over a ball screen, I would recommend Bill Self. But doesn't mean you're going to do those things. So then us as coaches, we get a 5-star, 4-star, whatever you want to call the number, and then we have to figure out in that system. So for me, when I had a really great offensive player, my biggest thing as a coach was I want to find the best matchup for them on the worst offensive player on the other team so they could float a little bit, and then in transition they could leak, right? Because normally my better players were maybe not rebounders. They were kind of wings or guards. Yeah. And I just think it's so hard in today's game because the three-point line is so important and it's backed up as far as it's ever been. You have people one and done, and sometimes there's a lack of continuity on the offensive side. So how does that hurt you? Well, most of the times when people leave early for the draft, it's not because they get over ball screens. It's because they shoot the rock and they're very good offensively. So, the teams we referenced San Diego Stadium last year. Gary's right. They're older. They're COVID guys, but you know what? They guarded. I mean, Dutcher goes back to the Michigan tree where they went to the Final Four. Mm-hmm. Remember when they had to change Fisher mid-year, correct? It's just, guys, it's really hard. And that's why I think I've watched a lot of SEC basketball this year. One of the things that puzzles me, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, A&M was rolling. They were rolling. They beat the heck out of the Vols at College Station. Then they lost 5 in a row. Yeah. Now they've won 3 in a row. And then I watched the first half. They devoured Ole Miss last week on the road. I mean, just absolutely. So it is a game of matchups. I think the Ole Miss A&M game is really important for A&M. Even though they're 47 on the net, they're 5-6 in quad 1 wins. That's pretty impressive. They're 11-9 quad 1 and quad 2. They're 47 on the net, but yet they lost 5 in a row in a league. That's a really good league. So if they lose today, that's 14 losses. I think they're in, but I think they need to win tonight against Ole Miss. I really do.
Yeah, Gary, I know you just got a few minutes before you got to get ready for your show. By the way, I was listening to your show this week, Tide 100.9. Folks, do yourself a favor. We bring these people on here. Listen to Tide 100.9. Listen to the Sports Animal in Knoxville with Vince. Great stuff. SEC Network's wonderful. It's the 40,000-foot view from above. Drill down local to guys like Gary Harris. Gary, along the lines of what Matt said, agree or disagree?
No, I agree. I agree. Listen, I usually will defer to a coach. You know me, Rob. I don't claim to know. The next
you do know a lot, though.
Well, actually, I did coach in my 20s. I coached little YMCA basketball team, so I do have some coaching experience. But I mean, this time of the year, you got teams that have the same goal in the sense that they want to extend their season, but we have teams playing for different things. And I agree with Matt. If A&M beats Ole Miss, I think they're in. And he had a great analogy with A&M as what they're capable of on either end. I agree. When they beat Tennessee, you're thinking, my gosh, man, this basketball team is, got Final Four potential. And then they hit the skids and, they couldn't beat Ned in the first grade reader. And
I love that. Hey, he froze.
They've got a guard that done a better job on him defensively. He can still go off, and this game with Ole Miss is so interesting because of what A&M was able to do to them. And now you got to turn around and play again. I think Ole Miss is going to play much better in this game. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think you won't see the same Ole Miss team that you saw get blown out at home. So A&M will have to earn it. But A&M is an interesting team. They may be the most interesting team in the league because of the way that they were playing. Then I kind of wrote them off. When they hit the skids, they just look terrible. And now they've kind of got it back together. So it's a second life opportunity for them. Florida's another team. I give Vanderbilt credit, but they were rolling and then they lost at Vandy. But if they beat Georgia, which I think they will, Georgia, how rough would that would have been last night if you'd lost to 0-18 Missouri? But I think Georgia, is not going to be. I don't think they're going to give Florida too much trouble. And then I think Florida and Alabama is going to be a great game.
Yeah, I do too. Vince, jump back in.
Yeah, on the topic of the players knowing whether they're willing defenders or not, or whether they can defend coming in. What's a great example of it is Dalton Connect at Tennessee because he was not a very good defender. That didn't stop Tennessee from recruiting him. He said, and this has been a topic all year, he wanted to be coached hard by Rick Barnes and wanted to learn how to defend from Rick Barnes. And he has been a willing learner on that end. And trust me, I'm at practices, Rick Barnes, and they are on him constantly in terms of defense, but just even the basics, like you were talking about the ball screen and learning how to do that. If he's not in the right place, offensively too, they're on him. Rick Barnes, after the Kentucky game, was on him about sharing the ball more with his teammates, which is another big topic of conversation. But the point is that he was willing and had the skill set to become a serviceable and improved defender. It's not his game. But if Rick Barnes told him after the first practice they laid into him, if you don't defend, you're not playing. So can you imagine if Dalton Connect did not want to learn and embrace being coached hard and learn how to defend? We would have never seen this and experienced that. He wouldn't be a projected top, lottery pick. Tennessee wouldn't have the status nationally it does because of his mindset and being willing to improve there. And the coaches knew at least he had skills to work with. That's how he became the overall player that he is.
Yeah. And Gary, real quick, I know, Matt, I want you to get in. Gary, I know you have to get off here early for your show, but and also let people know how they can follow you and keep up with all the great work you do. And then Matt, jump back in. But great. That's the most telling thing I think I've heard. And I've heard a lot of really telling, relevant stuff. But if he hadn't have decided he wanted to play defense, he'd have never got on the court.
Great stuff. I'll defer to Vince on that too. I like this term serviceable defender because I still don't think anybody's gonna mistake Connect for a lockdown defender. But yeah, he did. But when you can score like that now, I mean, I do think that Coach Barnes stressed. I still have a hard time believing he wouldn't have been on the court in some capacity. But no, I agree. I think when you play for Rick Barnes, you embrace defense. That's a big part of it. But yeah, people can follow me on Twitter at Gary Harris _WVUA. And I encourage people to find my Facebook page, my Gary Harris WVUA 23 Facebook page. I've been putting out a lot of content, and I like Twitter too, but Twitter's kind of hitting, go move on to the next one. On the Facebook page, I've got some videos, I've got some analysis, and so both of those areas, of course, WVUA23.com and Tide109.com. And listen, I enjoy being with you guys, and it's going to be an incredible SEC tournament. Even last night, with the 4 worst teams in the league in terms of the standings, those were great basketball games. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks, guys. Good to see everybody.
Hey, you bet. Love Gary Harris, one of the good people in broadcasting. And, what's cool is some of the conversations. Gary will call me on a Sunday night when Alabama loses, and I'm sitting in the mother-in-law's driveway in Clarksville, coming back from Knoxville when Tennessee beat Alabama in the 22 season. And just, he's like, yeah, when Alabama loses under Nick Saban, it's epic. And people, there are very few of them, but God, I have so much respect for the day in and day out beat writers, beat reporters, the local news people. I mean, I've done it for 2.5 years, but I mean, y'all have been doing it for 30 plus years, and it's just great content. SEC Sidelines Sports Network, SECU, drill down local. I absolutely love this conversation. And Doug, Dean, we're going to get into this now, if we can, Matt, after your question about the financing, the money that March Madness is about to bring in.
My point is to Vince, and I think he's spot on, but I don't think I've ever seen a more perfect marriage in a one-year situation than Dalton Connect, and I'll tell you why. To Vince's point, he needed that coaching and that defensive perspective that he did not have. I believe he was Northern Colorado.
Yep.
But my gosh, Tennessee also needed that offensive threat late in the game where they had a go-to person and they do so many other things right. They needed that offensive burst because last year there were times, I was frustrated because they would go through 3 or 4 minute spurts, Vince, where they just couldn't score the ball. And now throwing in the Dalton, he can post up, he can face, he can put it on the floor. And to your point, he has become a better defender. And it's his willingness to take the chance to come to Knoxville. I just think it's been a perfect marriage. There's not been a better portal situation all year, in my opinion, than that.
Yeah, 100% agree. Absolutely.
And just to sit there and say, somehow Dalton Connect would have found his way on the floor, but maybe not for as many minutes.
Right.
And but also I think as part of a team, if you're on a team and you know that 1 or 2 people aren't putting in their effort, that hurts team chemistry. I don't give a damn. It does. Every little kid I've ever coached in middle school, cross country, or track and field, the top 5 scorer in cross country, you may not be feeling it today, but you better find it because your teammates, they've got it. You better find it because you can't have off days in competition, just like in business. You can't do a halfway tax return for somebody. You got to finish the job.
Well, and kind of what Matt was alluding to, and in recruiting, if guys can defend, you also know who fits your culture. And you have to be able to identify that. Now that anyone is in the portal at any time, basically, it's about making the right decisions and having the right fit. Not everybody recruits every 5-star. You have a certain amount of time, you have a certain amount of resources, you have certain standards in the kind of guys that you want to bring in. And so they knew that he was willing to get better, and he has. He's not a first team all defensive guy, but he has length. He has 22 blocks, has 22 steals, and they play team defense there. So as long as he's not breaking down their defense, then it works for them.
Yeah. Well, looking at this is an interesting question about the money that March Madness. It's about $1.14 billion. Doug Dean provided me all this great information, and we're going to get into it more tomorrow on the Friday show with Frank and Dave and Matt and Doug. But the whole point is, with basketball at this time of year, you pretty much, you are who you are. Matt, how can you change from going a poor free throw shooting team all season long to suddenly the light clicks?
Well, as a team, that's hard to do. But also in special situations, you get the ball to your best free throw shooter. If you're up 3 or 4 and it's a 1-on-1, I'm going to get the ball to my best foul shooter. That's just imperative. I mean, it happens so many times. I I can tell you this, guys. We were a possession away from a Sweet 16, one of my last years coaching, and we were 1 of 2 twice in the line in the last minute, and it cost us. We went 2 for 4 from the line, and basically we were down with 1 with 6 seconds to play. Do the math. So in close games, you got to make them. And psychology-wise, I never really told my kids, hey, don't miss this, right? But, you know, you do things in practice. Like we would do things from a competitive nature in practice. We would do this 10-minute drill where, you know, you would shoot for a minute, you would run for a minute, and you would rebound for a minute as a break on the free throw line I'm talking about. And you do this and you chart and you record. And over the time, you know, prior to the season who your best foul shooters are. And then during the game and late game situations, you get them the ball.
Yeah. And so much, Vince, at this time of year, the mental part of it, you get all kinds of demons in your head. In the pressure. Rick Barnes, you know, everybody, that term regular season Rick, I mean, the guy's been coaching a long time. He's had Tennessee's basketball, 11 SEC championships all time, second only to Kentucky's 49. But also Tennessee's been to, I believe, a couple of Elite Eights, multiple Sweet 16s, never been to the Final Four.
Right.
Hearing that day in and day out in your head, you got 2 choices. You can embrace that and say, I love this challenge. Or that can weigh on you like a 50-pound dumbbell tied around your ass. Yeah. I don't think it bothers Barnes.
Not to where it impacts what he does with his players. You have to be able to adjust, though. So if you're doing something that tightens your team, you need to be self-aware. You need to put people around you, and I'm sure Matt knows this too. You need to put people around you that will have different ideas or check you. You don't want to just have yes people that won't help steer you in the right direction. So, you know, there's some things like bringing in offensive players that Barnes has adjusted to. I don't think the players are going to the free throw line or in a game thinking, man, we've never been to the Final Four. This program's never been to a Final Four, and putting that pressure. That's something that I think is a burden for the fans, but it doesn't seem like it's something that mounts for Barnes. He's human. So I'm sure at some point in the year when he sits back and outside of the season and relaxes, and I'm sure it comes to mind. But he is so hyper-focused on the moment and what they need to do next that I don't think it's a burden for them. Now, do the players get tight in wanting to do it for Rick? Maybe there could be something like that, or it may just be the expectation of perfection, of getting on them, of maybe not putting their arm around them. If that stuff truly is what those players feel, and I don't know that, but if it's something like that, then yes, the burden sort of down the line, in contact, is could still be in place, but not directly, I don't think.
Yeah, Matt, I see Kerry Jones from up in Lebanon, Tennessee. I like Auburn's bracket and chances of winning the SEC tournament. Love to see a rematch with Tennessee. I would too, but Tennessee won that game. Tennessee's the best. Auburn should have won in Knoxville. Yeah, Auburn fans think that way. I believe the Vols. I believe that they can beat the Vols at a neutral site. Well, Nashville ain't a neutral site. But you go back, Matt, when Auburn had that great beginning run, they got drilled by 27 in Lexington, KY, back in 2019, and all hope was lost. It was done. Season's over. Auburn reels off 12 straight wins, including winning in Nashville, the SEC tournament against Tennessee, and went to the Final Four that year. By the way, I watched on the ACC network a couple of days ago the improbable title about Virginia. I mean, the only thing I can say is about Virginia is that Dr. George Petrie in 1892 was a professor, born in Montgomery in 1866. He returned to Auburn to start the football program, and he took the colors of orange, blue, and white from Charlottesville. I've been up to that campus many times. That still hurts, Matt, when I think about the missed double dribble. But I like what Bruce Pearl said. If we would have hit a shot or two in the first 5 minutes of the second half, we wouldn't have had to worry about all that. Got to put things in perspective. That's psychology.
You know, if you're an Auburn fan, I will tell you this from watching Auburn play in the tournament a lot.
Yeah.
With Bruce Pearl as the coach, it's a style that you're not used to if you see them in the tournament. Now, conference opponents see them, they play against them, they practice.
Yeah.
Auburn's the type of team that can beat anyone. If they had a bad shooting night, they can lose to a lot of people, Rob. That's all I'm going to say. And the reality of the situation, there's a lot of teams built like that, but Auburn's very capable of winning the SEC tournament this weekend and making a deep run in the NCAA tournament. I feel that way about 5 teams in the SEC, though. I'll be honest with you. I think the SEC right now, I love it for my kids. I'm an Iowa guy. My kids were raised in Tennessee. They love Rick Barnes. If you get a chance, Tennessee puts out some great content. I watched the interview between Jordan James and Vescovi the other day. I don't know if you've seen that, Vince. They're reflecting before senior day. I think it was on the YouTube. Mm-hmm. Incredible 8 to 10 minutes of those guys. The relationships that Rick Barnes builds are lifetime. He still has a big-time relationship, I believe, with TJ Ford, one of his first great players at Texas. Okay? Yep. So to Vince's point, those guys want to do it. They want to win it for him bad. But when you go in to play a game, you're not thinking, man, this is – you're going out there to win a game, a possession. It's one possession at a time with Rick. That's what gets him so mad. He could be up 12, 13 points. If you have a terrible possession on defense, it will really tick him off. And that's what great coaches are about, is consistency of effort and executing a game plan. But going back to Auburn, I love Auburn. But, some nights that ball doesn't go in, Rob, when you're playing a team.
I wanted to get your guys' take on tonight's – was it 4 games tonight? 4 games tonight. Let's see. I've got the schedule right here. I want to see what you guys think. Let's start with Mississippi State LSU. Let's go through it. What do you think the outcomes are going to be here tonight? Matt, we'll start with you.
Okay, I'll go from the bottom up. I like Florida right now. I even think Florida is one of my dark horse teams, make a deep run. South Carolina, even though I'll tell you, the Muss Bus, he'll play hard for him tonight. I think we said about it earlier, Vince. I think A&M and Ole Miss, maybe Gary said this. I think A&M wins tonight because they need it. I'm going to go Mississippi State over LSU. That's my 4.
Okay. Vince?
Yeah, I agree with all 4 of those. Mississippi State is the better team, although they're not seeded as high as LSU. Yeah. They're the 9 and LSU is the 8. But I think that's a significant game for Tennessee for 2 reasons. One, the difference in net between those two, Mississippi State's 39 in the net, and LSU is 91. So if Tennessee is trying to improve their resume for a potential 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, you want to get another quad 1 win. Mm-hmm. That, and Mississippi State is the only team in the SEC, in this great league, that Tennessee has not defeated this year. Mississippi State got them early in the year, and they were physical with them, with Tennessee, and Tennessee wants that rematch. So you have an opportunity to erase that. And then obviously you want to continue. You don't want a bad loss. Like if LSU wins and then you lose to the 91 net team, that's a bad loss on your resume. That could, hurt you there. But I like all the other favorites, South Carolina, Texas A&M, and Florida to advance to tomorrow and set up an unbelievable quarterfinal day.
Yeah, I've got Florida over Georgia, South Carolina winning. I think, I just have a feeling about this Ole Miss Texas game. I don't know, just call it a feeling. Maybe it's just the gambler in me, maybe, but I just got a feeling Ole Miss might come up and bite them. I'm not convinced about A&M. This Mississippi State LSU matchup, I don't know. It's a tough one for me. I think, I just like to throw wrinkles in there, but I feel like LSU can not that they're not slated to win as an 8 seed, but I feel like LSU is going to be too much for Mississippi State. Rob?
I'm going to take Mississippi State to win. I think they're a pretty damn good team. They can shoot the ball. I'm going to take Ole Miss over A&M. Arkansas, South Carolina. South Carolina will step up on this one, and then Florida over Georgia. And talking about these games, I like what Kerry says. There are a lot of Auburn alumni and fans in Nashville. They're going to have the baseball team up there for a 3-game series with Vanderbilt this weekend. Gymnastics is in town, Auburn Gymnastics for a big meet. But it's still the state of Tennessee. But Auburn fans, they travel everywhere. I think Ron Slay and the guys on SEC Now were saying last night, we call it Catville or Catlanta. It's not just Kentucky fans now that are traveling. Look at the crowds, 16,000 there last night for the first night. Last time that happened, a new episode of Leave It to Beaver was launched. Okay, I mean, it's just
so many balloons.
Yeah,
this is how I regulate on Rob. I just put all the reactions up. So if it gets too handsy, it's an auto regulation.
Yeah, but I mean, there'll be Tennessee fans, Kentucky, of course, Alabama, Florida, Nashville. There are alumni of everybody in Nashville. The crazy thing is, the way Vanderbilt is, they're driving their fans away. They'd never had a losing season at Memorial Gymnasium until just a few years ago when Bryce Drew was there. First time they'd ever had a losing season, and now they've just been in a tailspin ever since. But, guys, I love this tournament, the Big 12 tournament, the Big East tournament. I don't know if anything will ever top live at the Madison Square Garden, that Big East tournament. But we've created something special. And the fans in the SEC, Vince, are as into this as they are that I've ever seen them.
Yeah, because there's more fan bases that have teams that are either going to the NCAA tournament or are really good and have higher aspirations than what we've seen in recent years. Tennessee could get a 1 seed. They've never done that before in their history. And, 7 teams in the tournament projections right now with A&M with an opportunity to play themselves in. So they're highly invested. And what's crazy is Calipari, like he said in the postgame after the win over Tennessee, he was asked about, preparing for the SEC tournament. He said, look, there's only one tournament I care about, and it's not the one next week. Like, he downplays the SEC tournament all the time, yet no current coach has won more SEC tournament titles than Kentucky, and their fans care about it because yes, there'll be Auburn fans there. Everybody will be represented to some
still
degree.
Kentucky though.
It's still Kentucky and Tennessee that will rule and dominate the fan base. I've been to many of them, and I don't care who's the 1 seed or who's close or who travels. It's those two when it's in Nashville, and then it's everybody else there, even if everybody has some sort of fan base represented.
Yeah, and that's what's cool is I know Tennessee. I got I got Audrey's Evolve for Life. I'm pretty familiar with that program. Matt, you know it, but as crazy as it is in Memphis, you got to search far and wide. That's why you got to listen to SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU to hear about Tennessee. Matt, you know what I'm talking about on the local radio. I mean, you got to beg them to talk about the Vols. And look, love Memphis, live here. But God almighty, Tennessee, I mean, they've got their medical school there. They got their dental school there. They've had about 20,000 season ticket holders from West Tennessee in football for decades. Matt, give me your pick on who's going to win the whole SEC tournament, and then I'll get Vince's pick. And then next week, you know what? We're going to be talking about March Madness kicking off next Thursday. But, damn, this is absolutely fantastic stuff. I love it. But, Matt, I'll start with you.
Well, I want to quickly go back to what Brent said, and I think he may be right about Ole Miss A&M to that because I think Crispy.
Matt, you want to reboot your reboot? Where you're breaking up every other word. The same thing that happened to Will. I don't know. Reboot and come right back on. Okay. And Vince, let's get your thoughts on who you think is going to win the SEC tournament, and then try to get Matt back on. We got Gremlins on the line, maybe a Blue Jay on the line. I don't know.
There we go.
Well, Matt's back. You want to give Matt a shot first?
Matt, can you hear me now, Rob? Or we choppy?
Sound great. Sound great.
Okay.
You took a Ricola, a lozenge.
No, I just want to go back quickly. Brendan's right. I think the Ole Miss A&M game tonight is going to be the most intriguing because I've been in those games where you got your tail whipped, and then you turn right around and play the same team.
Yeah.
And I think Chris Beard's got their attention this week at practice. The reason I did take A&M that game, I think they're playing for their NCAA tournament life. But it would not shock me if Ole Miss wins tonight. That being said, my kids grew up in Memphis. They had no allegiance to Tennessee. I'm from Iowa. They were Vol fans. In honor of my kids, I'm picking Tennessee.
Big Orange. Vince
right.
Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. What did he do? He scored. Touchdown, Tennessee. Give him 6. I'm a radio junkie. Vince, I got to tell you, man. Matt was a communications major in college. And having somebody, the two of y'all going back and forth together, and it's like watching, it's like watching Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones and John Bonham and Robert Plant warming up. What was that band called? Oh, yeah. They by the way, they turned down $800 million to get Led Zeppelin back together. $800 million. My God.
We did not. So there's
Yes,
a slight
No.
That's right.
Didn't do it.
God, I love this stuff. And when you got a producer, I tell you what, if you know what goes on behind the scenes, he was stringing cable on top of his house in Ocala, Florida.
That's what a good producer does, man.
But unbelievable, man. But Vince, let's get your thoughts on it, and we'll wrap it up here. A couple of minutes left, but love this conversation.
Yeah. Who's going to win it, Vince?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm going to go with Kentucky winning it, and I think it'll be Kentucky over Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
I see that matchup in the semifinals between Tennessee and Auburn. Bruce Pearl is outstanding in these tournament settings. He'll be obviously plenty motivated, like he always is, to play and try to beat Tennessee. That would actually be best case scenario, in my opinion, for Tennessee, and not have to play 3 consecutive days. There's no correlation between winning the SEC tournament or any conference tournament and NCAA tournament success. This is an older roster. I don't know that the best thing for them is to play 3 days in a row. They're going to try to win. They're not worried about the NCAA tournament for now, but for the fans, I think they wouldn't mind that scenario. Kentucky's just playing really well. Plus, they'll have the offense, the explosiveness, I think, will be a problem for Alabama, and then go on to beat Auburn in the championship. So I'll go Kentucky over Auburn.
Gonna be fun.
I think that's a good. I like that. I mean, as far as like how that breaks out, I think right now the team you don't want to play, and I'm not just being a homer, is I don't think you want to play Florida right now. I don't think anybody wants to play Florida. The guard play is outstanding. Great head coach. I think they're sort of the unknown factor. And I think coming off that Vandy loss, because they have Todd Golden's such a good head coach, I think he turned that loss into a positive. And I think sometimes that loss can be tough and can turn a team the wrong direction. But we have seen Todd Golden all year turn a loss. Even when they lost to Kentucky in January, they came back, went on the road, and won in Rupp, and convincingly. And then I think he's got these guys peaking at the right time. All the conversations around campus is that the team is loose, is feeling good, they're not feeling down, and I think he's going to turn that loss into a win. And I just think Florida might win the whole darn thing this year, the SEC tournament. I like their chances. I like the first game, obviously. I just think they've got. I think guard play matters in these tournaments. And Pullen's one fantastic guy. I don't think we've even seen the best of him yet. I'm excited to see what Florida was, and I think Florida's going to win it.
Brendan, that's a really good pick. And I'd say out of anyone playing today in these 8 teams in these 4 games, if you're going to pick someone to break up this bracket, and it's not going to go chalk, I think Florida is the best candidate to do that. And Gary brought it up. Alabama doesn't match up great against Florida, and Florida destroyed them last time out, and it was overtime the first time out. So I could see Florida being the one team to kind of go away from chalk out of anyone that plays today.
Yeah, and this is, Florida, you're right. You can let a loss can beat you twice if you're not careful. It's one thing to get beat. It's another thing to stay beat. That's what Todd Golden, he's got a great head of psychology, like Bruce Pearl. I like that mentality, because if you let a loss stay in your head, it crushes you. And at this time of year, no negative thoughts allowed in your head. Look, awesome show, because we have the best guests. Will Gunter in that first segment, Gary Harris, John Hartwell, get better with the old knee replacement. I know he's in Birmingham. If he's watching, he may think it's February 30th for all we know, because the day after surgery, you're feeling kind of rough. But love the conversation. Matt, let them know how they can follow you. You do the same thing, Vince. Let me say, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. You put junk in your head, junk comes out. Find excuses to win. Go out and be nice to people. Help people out. You never know what that person you see on the street is going through. Just think about that. Let that resonate. But Matt, tag out, then you, Vince, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, great show, guys. Vince, always great to see you. At Dino Hoops 44, if you're on X, Rhodes College, www.rhodeslinks.com. If you want to follow the Lynx Cats, we'll go into a baseball game today, Rob. And you guys have a great weekend.
Will do, too.
Thanks, Matt.
Great to be on with you as well, Matt. And it's crazy. We were talking about, I had Gary on, didn't get a chance to mention it. Tennessee is at Alabama to start SEC baseball play as well. So there's so many connections going on, and Alabama and Tennessee have met a lot in both men's and women's basketball recently. But my partner, John Wilkerson, will have the call of Tennessee and Alabama in baseball. I'll be in Nashville right after the show tomorrow. I'll head up there. I'll be in Bridgestone as long as the Vols are alive through the weekend. So that'll be fun to be in the Music City. You can follow me. I'll have posts and reports and stuff on all the socials, IG, Facebook, X at Vince Sports, VINCE Sports, and then podcast of our morning show, 6 to 9 a.m. Central, 6 to 9 Eastern, 5 to 8 Central, and 991thesportsanimal.com. And then Vol Network pregame interview, do those. So Tennessee baseball archived at utsports.com. So just a lot going on right now. Oh, by the way, spring practice starts Monday morning on top of everything.
Hi, Vince. So, do you have an OnlyFans page too, Vince? Good Lord.
Hey, Vince, let me tell you something. You got to get out to one of our sponsors, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. New company, they sell the shirts at Hewlett & Dunn, acres down south. They sell these polos. They've got the Tennessee polo, Smokey the Hound. They got the orange and white overalls. They've got 5 different Tennessee polos alone. They've got the corner, Toomer's Corner for Auburn. They've got the district from Mississippi State. Get out there, support all of our sponsors like the Vitamin Shop in Olive Branch, Mississippi, and in Oxford, Mississippi. That is Justin Ross and Matt Price. Get out, support Chad House, ECS House Industries. That's what this show does. HouseIndustriesInc.com. They make all the Better Roller, the Pulverizer, the Better Chopper, the aerators for Catfish Farms. All of our sponsors, support them. Check them out on the website. Unbelievable stuff, man. It never gets old when you're having this much fun. Get ready to watch a lot of TV. We'll do it again tomorrow. We got Savant Friday coming up. Thanks for watching.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.